A project is only as viable as the crew available to build it. But with a national labor gap looming, how do we expand and empower the construction workforce critical to home building? In this episode, we're joined by Sheronda Carr, CEO of NAWIC, to discuss workplace safety, leadership development, and the annual Women in Construction Week.
We represent all women in construction, gender advocacy in terms of amplifying the voice of women in the industry, but also amplifying and helping those who have selected construction as their career path. We're still around 11-ish% of women who work in construction industry. The bottom line is, without women getting more involved in the industry, it is going to be a critical national issue, right? If we don't have enough workers in the ecosystem, business will suffer because of it.
I'd like to welcome everybody today to the Construction Lending Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Ferris with Land Gorilla. I've got a great guest on with me today. Coming fresh out of Reno, we got Sheronda Carr with the National Association of Women in Construction. Sheronda, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Sean. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me as a representative from the National Association of Women in Construction. Excited to be here.
Well, for all of our listeners right now, why don't you just go ahead and we'll start it off here. What is the National Association of Women in Construction?
So the National Association of Women in Construction, we are the longest standing and the primary professional association that is representative of women in construction. We represent all women in construction, gender advocacy in terms of amplifying the voice of women in the industry, but also amplifying and helping those who have selected construction as their career path. So we started in 1955. We were about 71 years old. And a lot of people don't know that we've been around in existence for a very, very long time. But yeah, we focus on industry advocacy and safety for women and community for individuals who touch the entire landscape of construction.
That's amazing. I don't even think we talked about in our pre-podcast call. What is that, 71 years if I have to do really bad math? That's a long time.
Yeah.
That's a long time. Well, what are some of the things, give us an example of some of the things that you tackle. Like what are the big topics today that are important for your organization?
I think this year, one of the issues that we are really amplifying is workplace safety and really urging our organizations to have a zero tolerance policy where safety is concerned, where harassment is concerned, and really creating environments that are safe and palatable to all who work within the industry. And we focus a lot on the job site this year, but even in the office environment, making sure that our OSHA practices are actually executed and that women understand when they may not feel safe in environments, who to call, how to do it, and where the communities are that can support them. So that is one area that we are really highlighting in this space. And then, of course, workforce development is always a top priority, bringing more women into the industry. And NAWIC in itself is innately a platform to showcase more women in the industry. And so we have education opportunities with youth programs, and we work with local chapters across the country to really work with, municipalities and chambers of commerce to get information out about the specific and varying career paths that are available to young people and to people in general in construction. And then we really hone in, I think our core issue or value is centered around really helping those women who are currently in the industry that have self-selected this industry as a career for themselves, and really giving them the tools, whether it is technical, whether it is peer-to-peer networking opportunities, opportunities for leadership enhancement and development. We just launched a second iteration of our Leadership Academy. I think it's in its fifth week. It's an 8-week program, but it's very specific to the construction industry. So it's not just the soft skills, but it gets into some of those technical skills that individuals should know as they navigate the spaces of leadership within the construction industry.
I really like that, and I'm going to tell you a short story that's completely relevant in my mind, at least. Just got back from a conference. Our senior solution engineer, Cecily Cole, amazing woman, was there at the conference, and we're taking an Uber back. And she was telling me that she participated in this, women's networking group. And one of the subjects that came up is they were discussing kind of like around the idea of community, and how, one of the women brought up, men come to these conferences and they go play golf and they build these amazing relationships, and we don't have anything like that. Why don't we have anything like that? And our Uber ride got cut short. And, since she said that, she's going to listen to this podcast, she's going to start laughing. Since she said that, I've been thinking about that a lot, is why don't women have more of that? Why is that? Is that kind of like the idea around what you're talking about, kind of this leadership community where women can get together and kind of begin that journey of, forming community and building relationship with other women in that? Is that like an important piece that's missing?
It is. It's a piece that is missing, and it's a piece that NAWIC does extremely well. I mentioned that we represent the entire landscape, all facets of the industry. And unfortunately, we don't see as many women as we would like to, not just on the field, but in the office environment, and definitely at the executive level as well. And so we bring these people together to talk about their opportunities and also some of their challenges, and how they perceive and are experiencing the work environment, and ways in which we can help organizations understand some of the challenges that may be associated with being an only in that space. So yeah, we do. We have wonderful networks. We have, of course, our local chapters. Some of them are very big with 200 and 300 members supporting a region, but then we also have smaller ones that are 25 members. But the goal is for them to be able to create an environment, and they do so, where you can talk about anything that is work related. There are oftentimes networked opportunities where business to business development happens, and C2C opportunities happen. And then sometimes friendships happen along the way. I will say, as I'm 8 months into the CEO role at NAWIC, and one of the things that just warms me is the fact that we have new members, a lot of new members, but we also have tenured members, individuals who have been with the organization for 10, 20, 30, even 40 years. And when you think about that tenure, it's like, why do you stay? What is so special? And it really is the people, the network, the opportunities, the community, the support that this organization offers. And there are other professional organizations, but it really isn't one like NAWIC that focuses specifically on construction at every level, across the board, in every role, from the engineer to the architect, to the field, to the suppliers, to the HR solutions providers that help construction organizations navigate their way on construction sites. We do it all. And no matter where you are in your career trajectory, there's a resource and or a person within our organization that can come alongside with you and walk alongside and give you the tools and resources and assistance that will help you for years and years to come.
When I hear you talk about these subjects and these things, and my mind probably just starts floating in a completely different direction, and I start asking myself, like, I kind of get started in this loop of like, well, I wonder what those safety issues are that women may be encountering that I don't see. Right? There's got to be things that I don't see, or I'm ignorant to see, or I'm just too busy, or whatever the excuse is. when we start thinking about, kind of the different areas that you carved out, safety,
Yeah.
harassment, community, kind of were the big three takeaways. You know,
Yeah. I mean, I think when we talk about strengthening safety and job site culture, one of the things that I hear overwhelmingly is the ill-fitting PPE, the PPE clothing and attire, safety gears that one would wear on a job site, how it could be ill-fitting in terms of like the construction wear. It may not be suitable for a female's brain or head size, or ill-fitting boots. It's those physical things that we need to work in the gear, to perform our work appropriately. Safety gloves that are historically or traditionally made for male hands, those can be concerns when it's not proper fitting. That's just, one that is kind of a no-brainer in a sense. But then, beyond the equipment or the gear that one would wear, we also have, challenges with just like hygiene supplies or appropriate porta potties on job sites. And I'm learning that some chapters within NAWIC, they have these sister kits, for example, which are like these waterproof bags that are stocked with some hygiene essentials for women that are limited a lot of times on job sites. So these are small things, but they're very meaningful. And they are ones in which, when you are thinking about coming into an industry, if you don't have those simple things to support women, it really creates a barrier for sustaining individuals in our industry. Women
I
in
love every word you just said because every single thing that you said was new to me, right? And those are not things that I would realize until I'm out on a job site and I hand somebody a helmet and it doesn't fit,
Mhm.
or gloves, and it's like, oh wow, we don't have that, and it's got to be an embarrassing interaction in those situations. So I mean, just hearing kind of like getting down into the weeds and hearing kind of the day to day of what people may be encountering, women may be encountering, is very valuable.
We do create those trusted channels for our workers, and to voice their concerns. I think in November there was a horrible incident that happened with a trades individual, and they were harassed, and unfortunately it was a fatal ending. And we called a town hall meeting, an emergency one, in November. Roughly 500 people within hours got on a call to really address their concerns, to make sure that people understood what they could and could not do, what their, just to clarify OSHA guidance and strengthen the communication between general contractors and all those individuals who are on the job site, and to manage, job site expectations. But our goal this year in particular, with so much heinousness that has been directed mainly towards trades professionals, is really to create platforms and advocate for stricter enforcement of our existing safe spaces measures and practices that a lot of our companies have in place, but sometimes they're not executed appropriately, or people may not be aware. So we just want organizations, companies, to really emphasize the safety measures that 9 times out of 10 are already there to make sure that all of their workers are safe. But we create forums, timely, relevant, and the space for people to talk about their mental safety, but then also their physical safety as well.
It seems like there's kind of synergy of the subject of workplace safety to harassment. It seems like they're almost just interrelated, how one leads to the other just on safety. And I think that's probably the area where traditionally you think of construction and all the catcalling, stuff that goes with that history, kind of like a stereotype.
Yeah.
How much of that exists today versus, is that somewhere where, hey, we've made a lot of progress in that, you don't see it as much, or is that something like, hey, Sean, sorry to burst your bubble, that every day that stuff still goes on, and it's still a fight. Like when we think about harassment, what are some of the big challenges that are seen today?
It's still going on in the workplace. It is still an issue. It still needs to be talked about. It still needs to be addressed. It is one of the reasons that it's a challenge for us to retain women in the industry. However, there are some organizations that do a really good job at training internally. Skanska is one of them, for example. They have women's groups. They have a very high quality ERG, equal rights group, and systems in place to make sure that the training it's top down and it's bottom up as well. So while we may not have come as far as one would like, depending on who you're talking to within the industry, we are making strides. And I think that it is important for organizations like NAWIC and other associations that touch this space in construction to really make sure that we're all are emphasizing that zero tolerance policy. It is critical. And if we want to retain women in the industry, we have to make sure that it is a safe environment in which they can work and thrive and grow and navigate and change the trajectory of their lives, right? So yeah, I think that we've made some strides, but there's still room to grow.
I mean, it's all amazing to kind of think about. And are these resources that you provide strictly for women, or are they kind of agnostic so that, we're bringing on a woman and I just want to make sure, like, how do I get it kind of like a gut check? Are we doing this right?
Yeah, it's for everyone. I mean, we build strong consortiums internally, but all of our work involves just supporting the diverse range of workers at all levels within the industry, all those who are contributing to the construction process. We are gender advocacy, so we do advocate for women in the workplace, but we also want allies. We also provide information to all because, the bottom line is without women getting more involved in the industry, it is going to be a critical national issue, right? If we don't have enough workers in the ecosystem, business will suffer because of it. It's gender focused, but by being gender focused, we're helping the entire ecosystem of the construction industry.
How would you say things are going today? I may have just kind of asked that question a little bit differently earlier, but what I'm trying to think is, like, are we making progress in some of these areas? Like, do you wake up every day going, yeah, we're winning, or God, what can we get to move the needle? Like, we just can't get it to move. Like, where's the frustration that we should be aware of?
It's everywhere. I mean, it's the first barriers to entry. It is not having enough marketing and visibility so women can see themselves in every single role of the industry. It is safety concerns. It is never ending. It is building proper communities, making sure that we are supportive of those across the country for in every aspect of construction, but making sure that we're understanding the industry. All of it is really important, and each day is different. As I shared before, safety is a huge concern right now, but tomorrow it can be shifted focus on research, for example. How can we get more young people involved in specific verticals of the construction industry?
No, that's great. We kind of had the three kind of areas that I kind of categorized everybody in, around safety, around, harassment. And then we think about like that community, how do we get more people participating, and talking to each other? What seems to be working in that area? Like, where do you find a lot of success in, building community? Is it starting a group? Is it like a local chapter? Like, how do you even find a starting place, for a market?
Yeah, so we get calls every day. Oftentimes, it's one person that is familiar with NAWIC, either by social media, and it only takes one person. And either we have 120 chapters across the country. So either there's a chapter that they can immediately associate with, they can associate as a member at large. We're broadening our member value and engagement strategy at the national level. But if you find yourself as a female working in construction and you don't have a network, you can just contact us and we will help you build that network. We will help you build that chapter in your local area. And then we also have a new heavy industrial construction council. I mean, you have to be a member, but we have these affinity groups within our organization. So if you don't have a chapter, but you're in a specific vertical, we can still assist you with finding that community to help with, the questions that you may have that are helping and understand the jargon and language of your vertical of the industry. So you can join and you can participate in a myriad of ways at the national level, but we'll also help you work and find your community and build that community in any location that you are. And not just in the US, we have global affiliates. We have in Australia, NAWIC, as they would say. We have global affiliates in South Africa, in Qatar. I mean, Asia, we're global. The issues that we deal with here in America, they do translate globally. And so we do have global affiliates that we coordinate and build out programs on quarterly level. We just had one on allyship for global unity in terms of construction that had hundreds of people across the world participating and sharing best practices and sharing resources and creating an environment where they share their perspectives and the differing perspectives. And so yeah, we help you build that community if you find yourself in a silo.
You mentioned industry earlier, and I immediately pops in my head is the construction industry in itself is massive, right? There's so many different, right when you think you kind of get a good understanding of what construction is and, architects and, contractors, then all of a sudden, something pops up and goes, oh yeah, I'm an AI developer for crane operators that develop consistency for the built world. And it's like, whoa, wait, hold on. That's crazy to think of like developers in construction, and technology is like just a huge growing piece. So when you think of the construction industry, just in your own words, however you want to describe it, how do you describe just all the different industries that you serve within that kind of construction universe?
Oh, it's massive.
Right?
And it's interrelated. I mean, I have background in manufacturing, which plays a huge role in construction, but the ecosystem is huge. Everything that you see is constructed in some type of way. I mean, I think that the unique thing, it's hard to describe because, as I mentioned, we're residential, we're commercial, we're horizontally, we have construction lenders and, suppliers, and all are involved. But when we describe the construction environment, it's the built environment. It really is. Any person or organization that is involved in the business of building. And that encompasses a lot. It's massive.
What would you say, your membership, like what's the sweet spot? Is it, people that are working on site swinging a hammer? Is this architects? Is it just a little bit of both? Like, how would you describe the big ideal, member groups?
So any person working in the industry is ideal, right? Because they bring that perspective from where they are. But a percentage of our members are trades professionals. It kind of mirrors the industry right now. So we have about 5% of workers in construction who are in the field. And so that kind of mirrors our organization. But the bulk of our members are project managers or in the office and executive leadership roles. So there are decision makers who are part of our organization. So it runs the gamut. We truly do represent and reflect the entire construction landscape.
And if somebody, listening to this podcast goes, hey, I want to learn more about this, or I want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Next week is Women in Construction Week. And WIC Week, as it is called, it was built by NAWIC over 60 years ago. There was an idea from some of our core and founding members that said we need to spotlight the contributions of women in our industry, and everyone is celebrating it. Everyone is hosting information, but specifically for NAWIC, just go to nawic.org or wicweek.org, and you will find not just what our national virtual programs are, but what also our local 120 plus chapters are doing for the the week. I mean, we have some local chapters that are working with their cities to commemorate the day. Bridges are going to be lit up. There is, national news stations that are covering the work of our local chapters and the work of women in construction. A lot of our allies will be present during the week, but trust and believe next week during WIC Week, not just with NAWIC and our members, but the ecosystem of supporters and allies will be spotlighting the work of women and bringing more awareness to the construction industry as a viable career option for all.
No, that's great. I did not know women in construction was coming up that quick, and
Yeah.
the timing on all this could be just really, really perfect. What percentage? I mean, being how big the construction universe is, right? What percentage of women make up that universe? Like, are we close to 50-50? Is it like 5%, 95%? Like, where are we sitting today?
It's interesting. So we're still around 11-ish%, right, of women who work in construction industry. In the past year, I believe that we've increased some. I think that we have about 300 plus new workers, female, that are trending in this spectrum of jobs, but we have a lot of work to do. While we're growing some, I will say I was with a residential association about 7 or 8 years ago and running their professional women in building council, and the numbers were very similar, right? So we still have awareness and focus on women to help shorten or to truncate that labor shortage gap that we have across the country. But yeah, it's about that range, that percentage.
Where is the problem getting women to excited about construction? Like, hey, this is really cool. You may like it, like getting them in through the door, or is the problem that the door is closed and it's hard for them to get in, or maybe it's a combination of both? Like, how do you envision that?
Yeah, I do think it's a combination of both. I think that on the government level, at the grant level, I think we're doing a lot in terms of workforce development to bring people into the construction industry, but it's a lot of work we have to do. I feel like it needs to be a PSA. Back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, the governments pushed college, for example, and I just feel like we need to twist that narrative and really focus more on the value of construction, the closeness and gender parity that it has in those entry level jobs and beyond. So I do think it's hybrid. I think it's the workforce development component, but then also retention. So while we're getting waves of people who are interested, maybe not as much as we need, but we are getting a good influx of people who are interested in the industry, but then they touch the industry and then something happens where they retreat back. And so NAWIC's focus is really on retention. How, though, for those people who have self-identified and self-selected that they want to be a part of this industry, we provide them the community to help them be resilient, be stronger in terms of support and access and sponsorship of themselves as they navigate. But really, that is a focus for us. Once you are in the industry, how do we keep you in the industry? Because the more people who see, the more women who see the viability of a career path in construction, they will see it for themselves. You have to see it sometimes in order to believe it, especially for young people. And so we have to retain our women in construction.
Yeah.
So we're bringing them in. It's still a labor shortage, still a gap, Sean. But once we get them there, how are companies retaining them? And that's what we focus on by partnering with organizations, partnering with ERG groups, facilitating programs with ERG groups, helping them to understand concerns, issues, and opportunities with having a more diverse talent pool within their companies.
No, it's just super fascinating. We kind of normally get towards the end of the podcast and I do this rapid fire session, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something a little differently here because it's just such a unique topic. But if you think about change, and you're on the front lines, you see everything day to day, and in my own universe, I see things day to day, and I would just wish I could just snap my fingers and fix something, right? If I gave you the power right now to just snap your fingers and just change one thing about the industry, what would it be?
Perception.
Keep going. This is good.
I thought it was like one word, but no, but the perception again, the marketing around construction, I think we all can do better from every level. People need to see themselves in it, but it's expensive to have commercials and marketing around an industry per se that has a historically had a negative connotation with it. And so I think perception is everything. And the more we see women in every, facet of the industry, and we perpetuate that through different conferences, through different legislative practices. All of that will help shift and turn. I think the more people can see themselves in an industry, the more, and the viability of it. I mean, we don't want people to just see themselves in construction and don't think that they can make a viable career, because that's far from the truth. You can do that, but people need to see it, especially our young people, as they are working with their guidance counselors and career counselors. They need to have and make sure that construction is a part of that. I mean, there is so much that you can do in construction. Again, you can be a lawyer. There are different practices within it. It touches every single practice that you would go to higher education for. And so it should be stamped as a profession that is lucrative and viable and full of opportunity.
Yeah, my follow up, like, how do you change that perception? How do you get, hey, Brick Lane is a great profession, girls, come on out. We're gonna. It's like, well, that's a hard one to sell anybody on. Construction attorney, that's a man.
Yeah.
I missed that in my second life. How do you change the perception of construction for women? How do you get them excited about that?
One person at a time. I mean, NAWIC has 8 regions, and we host regional forums where hundreds and hundreds of women across the country, again, get together to showcase the value of construction and the viability and all it has to offer. Oftentimes, when we are creating these venues or these forums, we're talking to ourselves, but it's like each one teach one. You gotta not be afraid to sell yourself in the environment in which you live about the work of construction and what it is that you are doing. Unfortunately, we kind of soften some of our experience or soften awards and recognition as women, unfortunately. But it's time to shine and share. Individuals do it all the time, and as you continue to share and show their recognition, I think that people will see. But that is it. Continue to be at the table in terms of programming, engineering, glass, glaciers, like everything, being at the table, raising your hand to identify yourself as a woman in construction. And sometimes that's just all you need. You mentioned last week I was in Reno at a board meeting, and just by having the sign up that said Women in Construction, we're having a board meeting, there were people who came and said, what, women in construction, tell me more. And so I think we have an innate responsibility to showcase the work that we are doing. And the more that we do that, the more that it becomes a bit sexier to people to digest and to want to know more about.
Yeah, no, you got me, my mind spinning about, like, how do you get a great value proposition out there? How do you make it, exciting? But, construction is such a vast category. And I mean, even when you start thinking about where a lot of the audience in this podcast is centered around construction lending, whether it's the origination of construction lending, whether it's around administering construction loans and what that means. If I had to take a guess, I want to say it's pretty split. Maybe it's heavier female to male. From my perspective in construction loan administration, my wife did the job for a long time. I know a lot of women that do that, and but that is also kind of adjacent to construction. We're not necessarily in the construction, but we're in that built world that we're all talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, I would consider that, that is certainly understanding the loan process for buildings, for projects. That's absolutely being part of the industry. And so when we talk about NAWIC, that's it. I mean, it's not, again, just and only the boots on the ground. It is everyone that touches and has a sphere of influence within the industry. And absolutely, lending construction professionals are absolutely part of it because they have to work with project managers. They have to work with every component in order to make sure that they get the underwriting that is necessary for a project. So if you have any women in there in particular that are
Plenty.
interested in NAWIC, send them our way. Men too, right?
Oh no, that's great. No, that's great to hear. And I think people listening to this podcast, it helps open up their eyes. They've got one foot in that world and one foot in the finance world, and for us, it's one foot in the software world. We're kind of where everything intersects. So being able to, talk the talk and understand what are the important issues today is all just super valuable. And I'll give you any last words here on the podcast. Anything you'd want our listeners to know about your organization or upcoming events, what you guys have going on? The floor is yours.
Sure. So thank you, Sean, again. Thank you for the Construction Lending Podcast. We appreciate the opportunity just to share a little bit about women in construction and what we have going on at NAWIC. Again, the best and brightest organization that is built by a community of volunteers. We support the entire ecosystem. WIC Week in particular is an opportunity for you to spotlight the women in your own organization that are doing the work, celebrate them, celebrate their efforts, spotlight their work, not just during WIC Week, but the entire month of March for Women's History Month, but then all the year through. We're an organization, and you can get any information that you want in terms of our Leadership Academy, our mentor certification, our bystander training, our OSHA Alliance information, our heavy industrial construction council information, any of our national committees, and the work that we're doing at NAWIC at nawic.org. And we are absolutely on every social media platform, starting with LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. So follow us, share, comment, and I'm around in those social media areas. So feel free to reach out to me directly.
I love it. Sheronda, thank you very much for being on the podcast here. I learned so much today. Hope to have you on soon, and good luck with Women in Construction Week. I'm saying that right, Women in Construction Week. But thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
This podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not replace independent professional judgment. Land Gorilla Inc. makes no representations, warranties, or promises for and disclaims any express or implied warranties related to content. Before acting on any information, you should consider the appropriateness of the information as it pertains to your unique business needs.